You can run a remote team full of A players, and anyone who says you can't just is not trying hard enough. I've been running remote teams since before it was cool, for years prior to COVID, and there's a huge difference between companies that got forced to go remote and do a crappy job at it versus companies that actually do a good job on purpose. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my top 4 tips to not suck at being a remote company. The first thing you gotta do is dial in your setup, like your work from home setup. And I just mean you gotta put a little effort into how you show up. I'm not talking about like clothes, I'm not talking about wearing a suit and tie. I'm talking about the big 3, your camera, your microphone, and your lighting. If you're running a company, you should be offering your team some type of tech stipend to let them actually dial in their setup. People will do better work if they're better equipped instead of like sitting in their bedroom clacking away on the laptop. Think about it compared to in person. Like you wouldn't go to the office and sit in a dark room and like mumble all day long, right? It probably wouldn't work out too well because being an effective communicator is so important whether you're in person or not. So if you're gonna be a fully remote team on purpose, get good at doing it over Zoom. If you want to skip to the end and get all my recommendations on like everything from cameras and microphones to meeting agendas and how the cadence works, all you got to do is subscribe to my newsletter, links in the description, and I will literally deliver it to your inbox. You can grab it for free. Thanks. The second really important thing to be an elite remote company is you've got to become a master meeting facilitator, right? If you're leading a meeting, you are literally opting in to make it awesome. Right? Good culture equals good meetings. If you're wasting people's time in useless meetings, you're not going to be a world-class remote company. So the key elements to being a master meeting facilitator, there's 4 that come to mind for me. First one is every meeting's got to have a clear outcome. Literally like, what the hell are we doing here? Right? And ideally you can put the outcome in the calendar invite. So when you achieve the outcome, you can end the meeting. Right? Second thing, only have the required people show up. You don't want to have a meeting full of people who aren't contributing. And if you need to prove the point, just go ahead and calculate the effective hourly rate of like putting 10 people on a Zoom call. It'll blow your mind. I promise. All right. The third thing, take your Zoom settings. This is kind of like super nerdy. Take your Zoom settings and default them to record every meeting and then get a transcription tool. We like to use Grain in our company that will copy down the meetings, transcribe them, and let you snip out highlights and summaries and send them to people in Slack. It's so much easier than trying to take manual notes. The fourth thing, if you've got people sitting down and actually doing work in a meeting, use music to guide the work periods. Grab like a lo-fi playlist. If you got like, 5 people on a call and they got to make a list or write some stuff down, throw some tunes on. It'll make it feel a little bit more like an event and a little bit less like a waste of time. This next one might feel a little intimidating, but I promise you it's worth it. Default to writing in every possible scenario. As your company grows, you're going to have a million decisions and conversations just kind of floating around in the ether. And you're not going to have anywhere they've been documented. You're not going to know how to remember what, you and Jane talked about 4 Thursdays ago. So like documenting this stuff is the key to success. Ideally, you want to optimize to memos over meetings because it provides incredible clarity, right? So like build a template, spin up a doc, and if you've got a big decision, just get to writing. Write it all down, put the data in there, put the decision-making process because it'll force you to have better clarity of thought than just chopping it up on a meeting real quick. And the last thing, this is a rule in our company, any meeting that has more than 2 people in it, we take the most important notes and any key decisions that were made, we jot them down in a bullet list and we post them in Slack in a public channel, right? Whichever channel correlates to what we were talking about, just so we have it. So it's documented, it's searchable, and we can always go back and reference it if we need it. Default to writing will save you a million headaches once you lean into it. The last step here, and I'll be honest with you, it's actually the one that takes the most work because it's a lot harder than like buying a microphone. It's called architecting the operations, meaning you got to actually craft a cadence for the way that your company works. The key elements that I like to install in a remote company: weekly syncs, weekly scorecards with weekly data, monthly business reviews, quarterly planning. Like setting all of this up and actually running it with the team takes effort, it takes coordination, and most importantly, it takes somebody to own it, to make sure that it actually gets done. The key mindset you want to be in here is that your company is a product, right? So you should take these key elements, run them the same way every time, unless you decide deliberately to upgrade them. It's just like deploying a feature into a piece of software, right? You've got versions, you're making something better. The sooner you get to treating your company like a product and having a way that we do things around here, the sooner your team can plug into that cadence and start to drive predictable results and grow the company and be the kind of team that you deserve. So while we're on the topic of like architecting the operations, Each of those key elements should have an agenda on how you run it. If you want an example of how I do the quarterly planning, which I feel like is the most important one, I've got a link right below this video in the description. You can download my template for free. Click it, put your email address in. I'll drop it in your inbox. Appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. It means the world. See you guys next week. Peace.